And last but not least, let's talk about Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, right?
Sure.
Axel F, right? So, Ricardo, if you don't mind, I want you to do the synopsis for this
Sure.
this new one, right? But I will do the preamble, just basically talking about the series itself, right? Because for me, just in preparation for the fourth film's release on Netflix, right? I'll talk about it being on Netflix, right? In my review. Yeah, I recapped the original trilogy, right? And yeah,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's a good thing that I did, right? Because I haven't seen these films in a long while, right? So, quick little history with me and this franchise. I did not know about this series until 3 came out. Because I remember, because this was in 94.
Something similar in this case too. There's something similar with me.
Right.
Not that I know about the series, but 3 is the first film I saw.
Okay. All right. Well, 3 is the first one you saw. All right. Interesting, right? Yeah. So I just remember the ads being all over TV. And you have to remember, folks, right? So in the 90s, Eddie Murphy was kind of like the shit, right? You know, even though I was too young to see his films, I would have to wait until I either see them on cable or they came like on TV6 or whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, Eddie Murphy was big, right? And thanks to like TV6, I would see like stuff from the 80s that he worked on, whether it's like 48 Hours or Golden Child or, on Channel 2, the show Coming to America, right? Which is still one of his best films, right? Bar none, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, in the 90s, he was blowing up with the comedy, right? Whether it's stuff like The Distinguished Gentleman, which I still haven't seen, Boomerang, which I saw on cable, and I actually enjoyed. I don't love it, but I like it as far as like a romantic comedy drama, and I like that it show, his dramatic chops as well too. Like I like the pairing between him and Robin Givens, and it was cool. It was cool. I like it. I like that film, right? I just haven't recapped it. I haven't seen it in a long while, right? But anyway. So 3 came out. I was too young to see it. But I'll never forget Channel 4 as an AVM showed 2. And that was the first Beverly Hills Cop show that I saw, right? And I vaguely remember anything about it other than the theme song, which I'll talk about in a bit, and Eddie Murphy just being Eddie Murphy and just it being an action film, right? And then when I got cable, that's when I watched the first film, right? Although it was in an abbreviated, edited kind of way because, it's USC or it was VH1 or one of those stations that had it, right? So yes, all the F-bombs were out, right? So I had to kind of just watch it as it was, right? But then later on, I would see 1 and 2 uncut, right? But I never watched, I only saw 3 on USC censored, right? But I never watched it uncut until, the time, until my preparation for 4, right? So running through this series quick, right? So 1 is arguably the best of this franchise, right?
Yeah.
And I will say the one entry that will rival 1, and everybody will see this, is this new one here, right? What the first one did so well, though, is that it tapped into Eddie Murphy's rise as far as just like a comedian and a comic actor goes, right? Can I remember? He was big with SNL, right? But then 2 things happened. There was actually 3 things. 1, there was 48 Hours, which he starred alongside Nick Nolte, right? So this was his first foray into action movies, right? Not the biggest fan of that movie, but I thought it was okay. And yes, it technically kind of kick off the body action genre that films like Lethal Weapon will perfect the years later on, right? But it was cool for what it was, right? And I never saw. I think I saw another $40, but I don't remember anything about it. I don't think it is that memorable to begin with. So it's like that, right? Second thing was what is, in my opinion, one of the best stand-up shows ever. In my opinion, Eddie Murphy Delirious, which came out in 1983. That, hands down, is one of the funniest things I've ever seen from Eddie Murphy, bar none. I could quote lines, I could quote bits, I could quote jokes from that shit. Though. That's how much that show, that performance really impacted me, right? Absolutely love that, right? And slight little trivia, right? That whole "get the fuck out of here" thing that they say throughout the Beverly Hills Cop series. Yeah, he kind of brought this up in that stand-up performance, right? He actually brought that bit there too. That was really clever, right? and then the failure of Best Defense, which I remember seeing.
I don't know that
on cable, right? But yeah, it was so forgettable and so bad. It was like, I think it was like the first like official bomb, right? One of many, unfortunately, when it comes to Eddie Murphy. Yeah, this was like the man first miss, like the first bomb that he did. And it came out in '84. It came out before this movie, right? So yeah, when Beverly Hills Cop came out, it's like, all right, this was Eddie Murphy taking that second crack at it, you know what I mean? And yeah, it was a smash hit, right? But it's one of those things that they kind of find out after the fact how big it was, right? I mean, for one thing, the theme song, Axel F, that's the name of it. Yeah, that is a bop. That is a bop.
Yeah. That up there with the Ghostbusters theme song. It's like just these songs, you more know it for this than the song more than the movie itself.
Yeah, the composer Harold Faltermeyer. I mean, this is the soundtrack he did for that though, and it's the '80s, so it's real synth shit, right? That's what it is, synth pop shit, right? But that theme song though, that is b-boy shit. That is some b-boy shit. You hear that, and you just do some moves, right? You just get some, you put on some cardboard and you do the worm on that, right? When you hear that song, right? But yeah, that song defines the franchise because it's about the '80s. It's about it's about that time and that era when movies were starting to blow up and be flashy and whatnot, right? For one thing, it kind of put us on to Don Simpson, rest in peace, and Jerry Bruckheimer, right? And throughout their career, they would be the forerunners when it comes to this big budget, just action spectacles, right? Because right after that, they did Top Gun and then Beverly Hills Cop 2 and whatnot. And then of course, and we'll bring it up in our review of Axel F. Yeah, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have the Bad Boys franchise. Yeah, you know what I mean? They're the ones who just put these very stylized action films into the market. That's what they did, right? And yeah, this was the perfect vehicle for that, right? But of course, the reason why Beverly Hills Cop works is because of Eddie Murphy, though. This comedic timing was on point, right? And one thing I love about the character of Axel Foley himself, right, is that, and this is what the first film nails, right? He was not an action star. He was the guy. He was a wise ass. He knew how to talk his way into and out of situations, right? And even if he couldn't talk his way out of a situation, yeah, he'll pull out a gun and do his thing, right? But yeah, it was about him talking into a situation, doing an accent, talking loud, like, okay, get the goddamn thing. Just being a character, being larger than life. That's what he does, right? But then the show also kind of cleverly touch on, hey, he's this cop from Detroit where, Detroit is all like rugged and, rough, and now he's in Beverly Hills. It's all bougie and whatnot, and yeah, it has some great bits with him playing against that, the fish out of water thing. That's what made that show work, right? And they got a solid detective film out of it too, right? So it was detective first, then action later on. And that's fine, right? So as a detective comedy action film, it totally works, right? But it's in no way what I call that first film a masterpiece, but it is the best out of the series by none, right? Part 2, however, right, this was where they really incorporated more action into the scene. And it's interesting too because they got we boy, Tony Scott, rest in peace, to handle that, right?
No, the second one is really visually interesting, at least, because it does this great, like that opening sequence with the bank robbery with Bridget Nielsen. Yeah, prime Bridget Nielsen, right? But she that whole scene, how it cut together, and then it her counting down with the time, the stopwatch and everything. Yeah, great energy, and then the intro with him. I find it's like, oh, this is a real cool sequence with him in the Ferrari. I think it's a Ferrari he's driving.
It was, and it was playing this song Shakedown, which, by the way, shows up in this new movie too. I was like, all right, I see you. Shakedown, right? Also, just on the subject of Bridget Nielsen, right? 2 things. One, in that scene, she had to shoot the chandelier, bro. Like, as she leaves, she just bust shot, plaka, chandelier fall. Like, oh God, she done bust shots through the whole place. You just shoot up the place. You shoot the fucking chandelier too. Like, come to Madrid, really? And also, I love how they was playing off of Bridget's marriage to Stallone at the time. Because Judge Reinhold's character, Billy Rosewood, he was a big Rambo fan. So they make references to Rambo. The man have a friggin' Rambo 2 poster on his wall too. It's like, all right, okay, I see what they do there because his wife was okay, right. But the problem with that film, looking back at it in retrospect, was it just felt like a rinse and repeat of the first film. Like
pretty
it was
much,
the formula again. Okay, somebody close to them get hurt. In this case, it was the police chief. And then so he had to go back into Beverly Hills. His hard ass inspector captain guy tell him don't go and fuck you if you go, and he goes, and there's all that kind of drama. It was basically the same premise of the first film all over again, right? But Tony Scott direct the shit out of that, though. He make it look real stylized. I love, and you would see Michael Bay kind of draw inspiration of that with the Bad Boys films. Yeah, you know what I mean? These, really, bright, I should say, these sort of orangey looking skies with the sunset scenes and whatnot, you know what I mean? That's the color palette. Yeah, that's what Michael Bay did with the Bad Boys movies. That's why even though the whole Welcome to Miami thing, they did that with in this one here too with Beverly Hills, so you could see the influence with that, right? Also, just the emphasis on action and just how over the top the action was compared to the last film, right? Because I would admit, the first film was lacking on the action front, but this one kind of improved on it, right? But apart from it just being the same I repeated the first film, the villain, we didn't care about the villain, and the plot was just so convoluted, and you just ultimately just didn't care about it, right? So for me, it was a fine follow-up though, but it just didn't really do anything. It didn't bring anything much to the table, but it did give Tony Scott another chance to show his directing chops when it comes to action, right? And hands down, he's one of the most underrated action filmmakers ever, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
And then just to wrap things up now, there was 3.
Yeah, boy. Oof.
Which, boy, talk about a step. No, this is not a step. This is steps down. This is you falling down a flight of stairs, Dread. That's how bad 3 was, boy. Wow, right?
Right. I mean, I'll say the only good thing about 3 is Teresa Randall.
Yeah. Because I didn't even know she was in this, right? But she looked fine in it, though. Look, no disrespect to Jon Landau, right? I mean, he and Eddie work on, arguably one of Eddie's best films, that would be Trading Places, right? But boy, I don't know, I just feel like he was the wrong man for this material, right? I don't know. But I read behind the scenes that he really wanted to spice things up. He wanted Eddie to bring the energy back there. But while I was watching the show, I realized, but Eddie not bringing that energy though. Like, man was just vapid, boy. And Eddie's excuse in retrospect was, it's not 84 or 87 anymore, so he's older now, so he doesn't have to be a wise ass anymore. But that's kind of like what we expect from the character of Axel F. Like we understand he should be older. He should not be this quick talking guy all the time, right? But when it comes to what we know about him, getting into situations and getting out of them, he talks his way out of it. And those moments with him, it's either they just weren't there or it just didn't have that energy at all, man. It was just lacking in energy, though. And that was so shocking to me, right? And let me not even get started with the set piece of it being in this theme park trip, right?
I couldn't follow this because it's like, wait, it's where? It's in Six Flags? Where is this?
That's what it is. Again, so say the thing, right?
Because it's not Beverly Hills. That's my problem. That was Six Flags in Beverly Hills?
No, well, here's the thing. Looking back at it, right? It's a theme park in Beverly Hills, right? They set it up, right? But we don't come to these movies to see a place in Beverly Hills. We want to see Beverly Hills itself, right? We love to see those montages of him in the car. We get that,
it's a gag, right? That's a big part of it. A big part is the gag, and there's these stush people that's clueless, no? Like, that's what it is. Like,
and him just like laughing, right?
Stush civilians, characters, side characters, right?
Exactly, right? But, okay, I understand this. I don't remember this, Ricardo, right? This is in the Die Hard era. So this is, so this is, ironically, this come out right before, before Speed came out, right? So it was all about Die Hard this, Die Hard that, right? So in this case, instead of Nakatomi Building, instead of an airport, let's have a theme park. But instead of having people being taken hostage, let me have some kind of shady operation going down underneath the the park grounds, and let me bring in John Saxon, rest in peace, in it too because of reasons, and it was just weird, right? So in other words, it didn't fully capitalize on the whole theme park thing, right? Yes, you had a moment where Axel saved these two kids, but even that itself felt like out of place. So like you never see Axel do that before, right? But yet they just somehow did that, right? You could tell it's a stuntman, right? Nobody cares, right? Also, I didn't even believe this, right? I'll wrap it up here. Dog, friggin' George Lucas make a cameo in this.
Okay, I didn't even know.
I see that. I was like, what the fuck? No, like, swear to God, like, go on YouTube. George friggin' Lucas make a cameo in this. It was so weird, It was real weird, right? But yeah, they waste the premise. They didn't really capitalize on the theme park thing well enough. They had this painfully uncomfortable moment where you saw Axel in this like elephant outfit, and it just looked bad. They brought back Bronson Pinchot character as Surge because he into guns now and he's selling some new gun called the Annihilator. It makes no fucking sense at all, Dread. But the main takeaway from 3 and the reason why that movie feel to me was just the lack of energy, Dread. It just felt like it felt like a shameless cash in, like a cash grab. Dread. It just felt like nobody wanted to be there, nobody wanted to do it. Eddie Murphy kind of just like when he was on screen, it just felt like I beyond this shit. I should be acting like he should be working on like getting ready to do Vampire in Brooklyn or some shit like that, shit. Like instead of working on this, right? Like he just felt like at this stage of his career, doing a part 3 was beneath him, right? But I feel real sorry most of all for Jon Landau, right? Because I could tell the man really try it. The man really try to make this shit work. But the script, which is written by Stephen E. D'Souza of all people, was like, nah. It was bad, boy. And yeah, that was the nail in the coffin. That was the end of that franchise, right? So yeah, you know what I mean? Much to our surprise, earlier this year we saw the trailer for Axel F, right? And even bigger surprise too was that it was coming out on Netflix, right? And it was also going to be from this first timer, first feature film, his debut feature film effort, Mark Molloy, right? So it's like that, right? But I'll bring this up in my review as a wrap up, right? This is clearly tapping into what the Bad Boys resurgence, these resurgence of Bad Boys films is doing, right?
I'm not thinking Tom Cruise and Maverick, but yeah.
That too. Yeah, you know, we taking something that worked, that clearly worked, and just breathing new life into it, right? So it's tapping into that, right? And I think it's pretty interesting because, I mean, like, I am not the biggest fan of the franchise, and in no way, and just like Bad Boys, in no ways will I say that this franchise is like some action masterpiece or whatever. It's like, no, it's a great vehicle for Eddie Murphy. That's why it exists, right? The first 2 films are solid for the most part. Third one, utter garbage. And this fourth one, we'll talk about that in a bit, right? But yeah, the real sell of the franchise is Eddie Murphy. You don't come out of a Beverly Hills Cop saying, that action scene. This is not Bad Boys where you remember action scenes, right? And you remember the performances by Martin and Will Smith, right? It's not like that, right? But yeah, just the mere fact that this movie exists after, 20 years after the failure that was 3, though, is really fascinating to me, right? But anyway, I talk long enough. But yeah, Ricardo, your history with the original trilogy and how you felt about them, and then you can talk about what this one is about.
Yeah, I was largely ignorant of it until Beverly Hills Cop 3. I saw that on VHS. My dad borrowed it, and I remember just being bored with it at the time when I first saw it. It was terrible, and how I know it was bad is like, my dad fell asleep. He was like, "Oh, you watching this? I know watching this." I just turned around and see my dad sleeping on the couch. Like, that's that. And then years later, I heard about the franchise being good. Went back to see the first one. Didn't love it, but like I get it. Like I get why this would be a big deal for people. Real hard, real journalists kind of thing. Now, like at the time, Eddie Murphy was in his ascendancy. I think he was like 21 or something like that when that was out. So it's all energy and early Eddie, energy, and it really worked. And then 2, I thought was okay as well. Again, more of the same. You're right. But I think because of the action and just the energy of it worked a little better for me in that sense. Like it just, it's a lot more dynamic and much more interesting, and so on and so forth. And 3 is a mess. 3 don't work. I have no memory of 3. I don't think I ever watched over 3, like once. ever. Like I just remember watching it on VHS that one time. I remember it was a theme park. Vaguely remember it. I know Teresa Randall was in it. That's what I remember about it. That's about it. It's just it doesn't work. And yeah, that's about it. The franchise is a franchise that get why it works. But the joke is just, oh, Detroit Cop going into rich stush people and then just him fucking up stush people. Like it's always some valet or some buddy in front desk or something like that, or some receptionist, and he just start a riff, and that's funny. That's it.
Yeah.
Like that's sure. And then you have a thread, a bare thread of a plot above that, involving drugs or something like that, or somebody thieving something. That's it. Straightforward. And they make it work for what it was. And this fourth one is kind of more the same. Whilst it actually does up, but I'd say overall it's a better plot. Like, so yeah, this is what I felt the third one should have been. Like, this is what
we can all say that this is what the third one should have been.
Right. And maybe you switch out an estranged instead of the estranged daughter, you switch out an estranged sister or ex or something like that to have an antagonist and make it work, right? But that's about it. It's obviously not as visually interesting as 2. In fact, that's the one thing I think this really pulls this song. Netflix had to make an effort and try to make this look. Look, you have the cameras, we know you have the money, but the editing, you had to make everything look kind of a little smoky and I don't know, like, you know, just looking. The shot's too flat and it's not really working for me in that sense. Now that's why it's not as visually interesting as 2, but that's a better plot for the most part. I actually like the plot in this, and speaking of the plot, Taylor Page, she's really good in this.
Yes. I did not know she was in it. I was like, hey, I remember you from Zola, which I talked about when it came out.
Zola, and what she was in the other day, boy. Slipping my mind.
I'll look it up right now. Hold on, please.
Right after Zola, I think. The movie she did right after. No.
She was in Marie's Black Bottom.
Right. No, the movie I originally know her from was White Boy Rick. That's why I know her from originally. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that. And also, fun fact, she sang alongside Kendrick Lamar on that track "We Cry Together." You know that "Fuck you, nigga, fuck you, bitch" song, which I love. I love that song. That was off of Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, right? Yeah.
No, so Taylor Page is great plot. I think she's a good addition to this. I think. Even though I don't think she could have, they could have had better chemistry with Eddie. I thought she worked as a deliberately closed off, distant from Axel, without trying too hard to telegraph that to the audience. That's why I felt it works. Quick question: is Teresa Randall the character's mother from Tree? I'm not sure.
I guesstimated that. Actually,
maybe.
Yes.
But it might be slightly off because they mentioned her age is 32, and that show that was 94, I think. Whatever, it don't really matter. But yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he's okay in this. And then the nicest surprise of all, they bring back everybody. A surprise, they brought back everybody who could have come back. Sedge come back. That'll
be oh gosh, that'll be. I'll just pull up the names quickly, right? So that'll be Judge Reinhold.
Judge Reinhold come back, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and John Ashton, right? So it's Taggart and Rosewood come back again, you know.
Yeah, but even Ting come back. We call him Paul Reiser. I'm like, oh, he come back and all. He gathered something. Like,
I forgot. Right, that was him. Right, Jeffrey. Yes.
Yeah. So everybody come back and like, all right, cool. They get back everybody to bring back. That was good to work out. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he was okay in this. He doesn't add too much. I felt he playing a straight man, but I felt they could have him be funny, like he's just playing it straight, and he wasn't like. I thought he could have been the other Judge Reinhold character, like he would have been. Like I thought the way how they frame it, like they clearly wanted to kill off that character and then replace him. I don't know.
I thought so too, though.
It felt like that.
Kill off Rosewood too. Yeah.
But the thing is, they make it. He didn't really bring the energy that he could have bring, and they have this one sequence that completely unrealistic but kind of funny. But I thought they would have make it work for it. But yes.
I did talk about. But that made for one of the more dynamic scenes in the
one of the better set pieces. Yeah. I think so too. And that's one thing. It had some okay set pieces. But here's the thing. It really needed some polish and punching up with the edit. I really felt it. The edit was a little off at times. It really feel like, all right, this is a movie and it's a movie edit, and you can see all these seams. Again,
you're right. Like it doesn't flow as well as it should,
right.
Especially doing those action scenes, especially like the car chase scenes. Like while they are well framed and whatnot, right? And I actually applaud Mark for what he brought to the table behind the camera. Yeah, editing is kind of kind of standard, a little too basic.
Right, but they have it. But that's the thing. We have sequences that they could have make work better now, and that's why it felt very unpolished, and it felt like a Super Bowl commercial. Like it has more number problems. The camera work, not the camera, like what it choose to make it like. It doesn't feel like a movie now. It just still feel amateurish. Everything too flat and it's not really working for me in that way. But other than that, it just needed polishing up. Like I really wish they could have just tweak it a little better to just make it feel better. But the main draw works. Eddie himself, like he is funny. He feels older. He's reserved in this. What they do with him, I like for the most part. The plot I liked. What they do with the plot, I surprisingly like because it's like when they introduce it, it's very obvious.
Yes, especially when a person shows up, I was like,
yeah, exactly. By the casting, here's what I liked. By the casting, the casting. I saw him name in the credits, like, okay, they're doing that. Then he shows up, the way he shows up and how they frame him, obvious shit. But they didn't make it a twist because Eddie Murphy immediately pegged him one time.
Yes,
I'm like, all right, good. So the idea is that it's just not so much about who the villain is, but how the chess game they have to play, the legal kind of red tape chess game they have to play against him. And I find that part works for the most part because it's not a twist. They didn't make it like this obvious, wow, this is a shock. No. The part of it is just the kind of open, blatant corruption and him exploiting the system. His motivation is a little weak. It's one of those, if you see Judge Dredd, it's the same thing, not Judge Dredd, Dredd. It's that same idea. It's like, oh, the system doesn't work, man. That thing, okay, I get it. It is a slightly interesting idea, but I felt they could have dig a little deeper on that. But I felt it still worked for what it was trying to do, and yeah, it's still fine. Like I wish it was edited a little better, and I wish it just was a little polished better. But for the most part, I thought it worked. And mostly because of Eddie Murphy himself. He really keeps things together. Like they have a great opening sequence in Detroit. I thought was like surprisingly funny and worked. With that partner, you have like another schlub of a partner. They make that work for what it was. I'm not sure how they like in terms of like the placing of the story. Usually you're supposed to start in Beverly Hills and then justify why Eddie is there. So I felt like I would have cut that a little different. But for the most part,
sorry to cut you there, but usually the story begins in Detroit and then that's when you go to Beverly Hills, and that's when you get the montages of him in the car.
Well, in two they started the opening sequence wasn't it?
Like yes, it was in Beverly Hills, right?
Started,
okay,
like,
well, where the establishing
right. That's the point. That's the point I'm making now. You establish the narrative. Like you don't know what's going on, and you do something wild, and then you just flip to Axel now. But yeah, it's Eddie Murphy doing the Tom Cruise thing, right? He's not as fit as Tom Cruise. He can't run down the place, but it was never action. He was never action figure anyway, so it didn't matter. And it's a legacy story, but it felt for the most part, at least from a character standpoint and a thematic standpoint, quite organic. It didn't feel like, oh, look how terrible he is all the time or whatever it is. He making mistakes. He's not perfect. They balance it well. They didn't try to get out of the way old man bullshit. I hate that. Kind of get tired of that because it's such a lazy conceit. You have to know what to do with that. Very few people pull it off well. Like I think, like for example, Last Jedi I think did an okay job with that, but Indiana Jones was rubbish. I hated it. They do that. However, point is, they make it work. All things considered, and I dug it for what they was trying to go for and do. I kind of dig in this for what it is. I'm not sure if I'll give it a rewatch, but Pong for Pong is probably Pong for Pong is probably the best of the sequels, right?
Yes, agreed.
Like
yes.
Not as good as the first one, but still solid and fine. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, fun fact, right? I was reminded of this, right? Thanks to Wikipedia. Abi and Fala, the guys behind the Bad Boys sequels. Yeah, they were supposed to direct this, but they left because they got hired to work on another film called Batgirl.
Okay. Wow. And that didn't work out. And that's sad.
Yeah. But thankfully for them, they at least have Bad Boys Red or Die to fall back on, right? So lucky them, right?
I didn't know that. That's sad.
And Mark Malloy came in to replace them, right?
Right.
And I'm saying this too because if they were on board, though, we would have gotten that same sort of like dynamic energy that they brought to those last two Bad Boys movies, right? Because as we said before with Ride or Die, like they're not trying, well, even though they have to do the occasional visual tribute to Michael Bay, they're not replicating them. They're bringing their own style to the table, right? Something more kinetic, right? And yeah, I mean, even though I felt like Mark did a solid job, I mean, in terms of just the direction, I really dug the cinematography for this as well. Just when it came to the action scenes, right? I just felt like this just sort of had like an extra, like just a extra oomph to them, right? And yeah, you're right. Editing has a large part to play with that, right? Because yes, while I'm watching these scenes, especially the chase sequences, yeah, they're working, but at the same time, it's like I wanna like be on the edge of my seat now, right? That brings to one thing that I admire about the show, but I know people might be turned off by it, right? The musical callbacks, right? So yes, in the first act, well, I should say in the first half of the film alone, there are 3 songs that were pulled from both, the first 2 movies, right? I actually like that. I like that they actually use the soundtrack to do like a tribute, like it's nostalgia, but it works, right? Just like a callback to those the first 2 films, right? Also, points to Lorne Balfdred, the composer of this film, yeah, for really tapping into what the original composer, that would be Harold Faltermeyer, did with the first movie. I was like, yeah, it'll be like with the synth music now. Yeah, the man actually like did over the theme song, the Axel F theme song. I was like, yeah, this is working. And even certain cues that was from the first film, he redoes. He just does his own take on it, right? But also like that he keeps it a little contemporary. So you have like a little trap drums here or there as well too, right? But yeah, I thought that Lorne really, really crushed it with the score. Though I was really impressed by it, right?
Yeah.
But I know for some people, they'll be like, oh gosh, the nostalgia, right? So it had to sound like the old films. Oh gosh, you had to use the same music. Oh gosh, okay, fine.
I don't mind that. Yeah, exactly. For something like that, the music cues is perfectly fine. That's like, it's a music cue. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And just lastly, in terms of music, right? So there's a song that is included in the third act and during the end credits, right? Called "Here We Go," which basically takes the theme song and reworks it into this sort of trap anthem, right? And it's done by Lil Nas X. I was like, hey!
Really? I did not know that.
Hey! Okay. Not over the moon with it, but I like that it does still harken back to the franchise itself. That it's kind of hokey, like when you think about like, we have to use the same synth lead from the original team, but how they work it in, it works. They make it contemporary. You walk out to the show hearing it, it's like, it works for the most part, right? There are some visual callbacks to the original trilogy as well. Some lines of dialogue and whatnot, some set pieces and whatnot. The chase scenes in particular do harken back to the first 2 films because, yeah, like in the opening to those films, especially in the first one, yeah, there was a car chase scene. In the second act of the second film, there was a car chase scene as well. So yeah, and they was playing certain songs. So you could tell they were tapped into that, right? Some of the callbacks are a little on the nose. Like there's one involving Rosewood, like a line that he says, but it's a line that he always says post shootout. That's all I'll say without spoiling anything. So when he says it here in this movie, I was like, all right, I get the joke, but now we really didn't need that. That's for the diehard fans, but I didn't need that, right? Also, I like the middle finger that they give to the third one, boy. I'm not gonna say how they do it, boy, but when they say it, I was like, wow, like they just sweep that shit underneath the rug one time, like no hesitation, right? And that leads me to the character of Jane Saunders, right, who's played by Taylor Page, right? Yeah, I was thinking that she was Teresa Randall's daughter. Because yes, surprise, at the end of 3, they kind of hook up, right? That's all you see. She and Axel, right? But like her surname, from what I read here on Wikipedia, is not Saunders. So clearly, Axel hook up with somebody else. So it's almost like they just acting as if 3 just didn't exist. But to the 2 people who actually remember how 3 ends now, you remember, they did hook up. They were a couple. So the first instinct is like, so Taylor Page's character clearly is their daughter, but the show's like, no, not really. So that was just weird to me. But I don't know. I guess it's just the show just purposely saying, yes, 3 do exist. Forget about 3. We make that one little reference to 3. That's all they're getting, right? But mostly it's just about 1 and 2. And I like how they do the callbacks to that, right? That being said, though, yes, Kevin Bacon is the best villain in this franchise we've gotten so far. But that really, really is not saying much at all. Okay, the first guy, I forget his name, and the actor, yeah, he was just this bougie guy who had owned this art gallery, but he was dealing drugs. But the whole sell was, I'm a bougie guy, and I could talk down to you, Axel, but here I'm selling drugs, and you should arrest me because you're a cop, man. That was the sell, right? Second one, I didn't really understand what his motive was. It was something about gun running or some shit. That's really it. It was just so lackluster, right? But yeah, Kevin Bacon, even though his motivation was kind of cliche, he is the best though, and it's just mainly because of Kevin Bacon. Just the, let's call it stellar acting, but just the great performance he brought to the table here. But the man was not half-assing at all, right? And speaking of half-assing, I am happy to report that Eddie Murphy did not half-ass his performance in this at all, though, compared to 3. 3 was like, all right, I need to be here. Like, oh fuck, man! Like Vampire in Brooklyn, though. Like, oh gosh, I want to start alongside Angela Bassett. God damn it, why am I here? Right? This one is like, no, I come here to play, but I'm having fun with it as well too. And as far as his performance as Axel Foley, this was what I wanted in 3 Dread, where he is older, he is wiser, you know what I mean? Like he's more rational and whatnot, right? And he'll be reasonable with people, but he could still be a smart ass, right? He could still be a wise cracker, you know what I mean? He have the gift of gab. And that's what I felt the third one was missing. Here you got those moments. You want him to talk way into a situation, talk shit, be loud, be animated. That's what we want. But be reserved at the same time because he's old and, to the franchise's credit, we don't want to have a repeat. We can't go back to how he was when he was in his 20s, when the first 2 films came out, right? He had to do things a lot differently. He's older. But is the gift of gab that makes Axel Foley, right? Because he's not an action hero. Eddie Murphy is not an action hero. I'm sorry, right? So he had to sell something else, right? But yeah, he came through. He did this thing. The pairing between him and Taylor Page made the show work for me. I love the dynamic between the two of them. Her being, his estranged daughter, and just how they riff together. There's a great bit involving Axel having to talk his way into a situation, and she comes in and lies alongside him. I'm like, word, yes, that's what I want. That works, right?
Well, what they do it in the beginning, in our first part where she kind of mess him up on it, and then the other time when she built on it in the other way. That was good.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Yeah. I didn't mind the characters from before. So it was cool seeing Judge Reinhold. It was cool seeing John Ashton, because he wasn't there in the third one. But yeah, them old boy. Wow, you know what I mean? Yeah. Paul Reiser old. Well, Eddie Murphy old, of course. He 60. I think he's in his early 60s right now, right? And he shows it, right? Joseph Gordon-Levitt was fine as well. But yeah, like you, I thought that he was going to be the new Rosewood, where he's a straight arrow, but when time comes to get shit done, you find a gun. It's like, you can't have too much firepower. That's what Rosewood said in the second film. Yeah, it's like I thought that he would have been the new Rosewood, but it's like, no, they kind of set something up with him and Jean, which was fine, but it's like, all right, okay,
Right.
And also didn't even mind the cameo from Bronson Pinchot as Serge, right? I didn't mind that.
Right,
that
actually
would. Yeah, it served up purpose, right?
It was funny.
It was. There's a couple other cameos as well too, and they work in terms of moving the story along, right? But yeah, other than that though, just to wrap things up, right? Again, this was never like a game-changing franchise to begin with. It was just basically a vehicle for Eddie Murphy. It's just like Eddie Murphy saying, look, I can do action movies. I could star in an action movie. Can remember 48 Hours is pretty much Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy, right? But this one is Eddie Murphy top billing, right? And yeah, I just like that this show really brought new life and energy into the series itself, right? So just a couple of things before I get to it, right? So the Netflix release of it, right? At points, I was imagining this like as a theatrical release, right? And I guess the reason why it wouldn't have really worked as a theatrical release, I don't know. Like, I guess it's just really because of the rapport that Eddie have right now with Netflix, right? Because Yeah, I mean, they did Coming to America. No, Coming to America was Paramount Plus, I think it was, right? But there was Dolomite Is My Name, right?
Right.
And they actually make a nice reference to Dolomite Is My Name. Well, it's slight spoiler. They just mentioned Wesley Snipes. I was like, okay, I see what they did there. Okay, that was really clever. Right. Okay, right? Yeah. But I feel it's just like, you could just put it out there, you know what I mean? And not have to worry about it making money in the box office. But I think that people would have still gone to see it, Like, but if they had, like, I think what would have really make it sell, though, is if, in retrospect, they got the guys who did Bad Boys, like the Bad Boys sequels.
Right.
If they came true and they sold, it's from the directors of, Bad Boys for Life and Bad Boys Ride or Die, then, yeah, people would have been on board for this, right? And I will say, right, I could see this being as a nice little double feature alongside Ride or Die. Like, when Ride or Die comes out digitally or comes out home media, yeah, you could pop this in and then watch Axel F, right? Because, again, it's just about old action stars or old heroes coming back and doing the thing again. That's kind of the gist of it, right? That's pretty much what it is, right? But it being on Netflix is fine, right? But yeah, Ricardo, understand what I mean, where you could see kind of the limitations with the budget. Like, yes, I mean, it's a very sleek and, it's a very expensive ass movie, right? But yeah, at times it's like, I don't know, like be, just kind of go out there and make the scene look a lot more dynamic. Like, it's an action film. Like, really go out there. Don't feel like you have to limit yourself because it's Netflix and whatnot, right? But yeah, just the mere fact that this is on Netflix is pretty interesting, right? See, knowing that, right now, Ride or Die, as in Bad Boys, is in theaters right now, right? So it's weird, right? But other than that, for what it's worth, this was still solid business, man. I enjoyed it. Not as much as I wanted to. Again, because I just not fully invested in this franchise to see that I love, or like there's one that I absolutely love to begin with, right? But this is still, one of the best entries in this series, but that's really not saying much. I'll put it up there with the first one. I'm not like for now. I would just say 1 is on top, and then 4, and then 3. Sorry, and then 2, and then 3, and 3 just pretty much could just be flushed down the toilet, and nobody should remember that shit ever again, right? But it exists, so whatever. So yeah, for me, rating wise, strong 3.5 to like 4 out of 5, man. It's definitely worth checking out. I will say, if you're not familiar with the franchise, or if you haven't seen the franchise in a long while, watch the first two, and then jump into this, because you will be impressed by the visual references to those two films, right? Very, very clever references. Sometimes they're a little on the nose, but still very, very clever. I like how they do there. And then, of course, just a little bit that they say about 3, that deserves a round of applause for me, Joe. That's like, forget about that shit, move on, right? But yeah, and just lastly, before we get to your final total rating, I could kind of picture a follow-up to this, similar to how we had Bad Boys Ride or Die, like, a follow-up to it. But then again, they set up the sequel in Bad Boys for Life, right? So we knew that we was going to get a sequel, and, it's out right now, right? But as far as Axel F, I keep butchering that, right? Yeah, it pretty much is done, right? But that's what we said about the first film, right? And then we had part 2, so maybe we might get a second one, and maybe Mark Malloy, the director, could, step his game up, just like how, those guys who did the Bad Boys films did, right, with this new one. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be mad, and I wouldn't be surprised neither if we get a sequel to this, right? And it could stay on Netflix. I don't think it should be out theatrically, right, for whatever reason. But yeah, this was good. This was solid for what it was, man. Yeah, Ricardo, your final thoughts and rating.
Yeah, as I said, I wish it was a little more polished, but it's still pretty, well done as it is. I can't be mad at any of it in that sense. He evolved the material. It's pretty much a kind of Top Gun situation all over again for me. Like, it's not bad, and like let's admit, a big part of Top Gun was the set pieces and the spectacle.
Yes,
that's the one thing with it. I felt they could have somehow make it look great. If they could have really make that look great, it would have been over the top for me. So that's why I can't put it as high as say a Top Gun Maverick. But as it is, it's a solid thing. It's structured reasonably well. Good cameos, and for the most part, like Luis Guzman had a decent cameo. That was funny. Stuff like that. But yeah, it worked. I find it mostly worked for me. I didn't have a big issue with it. Rating, I give it like a 7 out of 10. Closer to 8, but 7. I wish it was. I just wish it was a little more polished. That is the only thing. That held it back. But for the most part, this is a solid outing. As I say, I put the ranking as roughly as same with you, 1, 4, 2, 3. In that sense. I mean, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.